Hi, guys. We've got John on today. He runs his own successful recruiting company as well as mentors other recruiters. He is amazing. John, if you could just start with kind of how you got started and what your journey's been.
Yeah. So, I jumped into recruiting back in 2015, working for a pretty big tech recruiting agency. And that was my first commission only work that I'd ever done. So it was really nerve wracking for me at the time. New field, new type of work. So I did that for 2.5 years. Loved my team, loved the company, really enjoyed it. But I always sort of had inner entrepreneur, that sort of entrepreneurial itch. I didn't know what
Love
that was
it.
going to look like when I was in recruiting, but and I did not think that I was going to go start a recruiting company at all in 2018. But that's what ended up happening. They made some really big changes, increased a lot of the red tape. So my wife and I talked, and I took the leap and started my company back in April 2018.
Yeah, tell me about taking that leap. Tell me about that, because a lot of people, that are listening are probably going through the same thought process. So tell me kind of what the back and forth was and how you eventually decided to bet on yourself here.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's almost better that my manager didn't give me more freedom, because at the time I was asking for things like, could I work remote a little bit? Could I, after I had kind of gotten ramped up, I was a couple years in, and they said no. They said no to a lot of things. And so at the time, we're kind of taught when you're an employee, like, to sort of be shamed, like you're not supposed to think that, like you're just supposed to obey. And
Right.
to some extent,
Stay inside your box.
right. Stay inside your box, right? And so the more they said no, the more it made me go, I just want to give this a shot.
Yeah.
And so I was just finishing up paying off my last student loan. I was like done with that. And my wife and I were just talking after we finished paying them off. We're like, if there's ever a time, like, now's the time. Like, you can. So the thought process went through my mind, like, I can always go back and get another job in recruiting.
Yep.
But
So
it just
true.
I sort of came to this crescendo where I was like, let's just give this a shot. And it's funny, during that season, I don't know why, I was watching this Tom Brady documentary, and this is like from 2007. And he tells this story. It's like one of the few times you really see Tom Brady cry. And he's talking about when he was waiting on draft night to get drafted. And I'm not saying I'm Tom Brady. I'm not Tom Brady.
Are you sure?
But he says he's going first round, second round, all the way down to the sixth round. And the reason why he is who he is today is, he says, because he always thinks of all those people who doubted him and thought you'll never succeed, of why he got accepted at the end of that. So I just thought, I can adopt that same mentality in starting my company. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to use that as fuel. So that's kind of what I did. That was kind of my mentality. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I want to pause on that just so this will land for people. So part of what John did here is really smart, saying, hey, I can always go back and get another recruiting job. Like, this isn't a permanent decision that, if I mess up here and my entire life is screwed up. John was like, okay, look, I'm already competent at this. I can always go back and get another recruiting job. Let me try. And it seems to me, listening to you, John, that freedom was a pretty big part of it. Like you felt boxed in.
100. Like totally trapped. Like absolutely just like stuck, confined, and like that. It's so funny how that like will start to fuel us and really be like, oh, no, I want more. I want something different. And like, why does it have to be this way? Why do we have to operate inside this like 9 to 5 idea?
Yeah. Right. And I remember, around that time, we had dinner with some friends, and they both had really big corporate jobs, not recruiters, not in that same space. And my wife and I, both of us, are sort of pretty entrepreneurial. She's actually into network marketing and is successful in that. Not my thing, but she's really great at it. But we were talking with these friends, and we were sort of floating some of these ideas that we were thinking about starting our own business. And they looked at us and they said, I want comfy, big corporate America for the rest of my life. And I realized that some people, they do think like that. And that is okay. It really is okay.
Yeah,
it's not a right or a wrong thing, but I think for some of us who are stuck in those jobs where we really do I feel like I would do better. I'd rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for someone else. I was like, that's just who I am. I can't help it.
I totally get
I'm
that.
the same way, dude. Like I felt like I was like, doing recruiting for another company, and I was like, dude, this incentive structure isn't aligned. I'm like, part of the corporate dance is pretending to work 8 hours in a day or 9 hours a day. And I'm like, dude, you're going to have, I don't know, depending on you, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours of like dedicated work that you can do every day consistently. And I was like, I don't want to be in this incentive structure for the rest of my life. Like, I just want to be incentivized to produce a result, do good work, make good money, wake up when I want to wake up. I don't want to, as an adult, I don't want to be told when to get up and what to wear and how to dress and how to, and I'm like, no, man, like, I think I should just bet on me, which sounds like you did. So walk me, I love it, man. So walk me through, how long did you give yourself for cash flow? Did you say 6 months? You say 9 months? What did you do when you launched originally? Like, kind of, you're smart. So I'm curious to see how you structured it.
Yeah, and I'll give you guys as many details as you want here, and I'm not saying this is how everyone should do it, but I'll tell you how I did it.
Yeah.
So when I was getting ready to leave, and it happened to be on Friday the 13th, April 13th, which today
is the 13th? That's so crazy. Yeah.
How weird is that?
Oh.
I just realized that.
Beautiful.
Not planned, everyone, but so I went and I started researching 0% APR credit cards. Okay, so I was like, you know what? You can get a credit card 15, 18 months, not pay any interest.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started calling every company that I thought I might need, right? I called ZipRecruiter, I called Indeed, I called LinkedIn, and I got sort of tabulated what are these things going to cost?
Mm-hmm.
This is while I'm still in my job. So literally on my lunch break, I'm going to Starbucks. It's like my little coup I'm forming against my.
I will leave corporate America.
Just waving my American flag on my lunch break. No, so I'm calling them. I'm getting pricing. I'm sort of tabulating it, trying to figure out, okay, how much is this going to cost? And you know what I realized? And this is funny. A lot of recruiters think, I've heard recruiters say, well, isn't LinkedIn Recruiter, isn't that $20,000 a year? Isn't that $25,000 a year? I'm like, no, it's $5,400 a year. It's $1,350 quarters. So you have 4 installments quarterly, which when you consider how much value you can get from that one tool alone is pretty amazing. I know I had built a lot just with LinkedIn Recruiter. So I purchased those licenses in that last week. I'm sorry, I teed it up to purchase them. I didn't make a purchase. I went in, met with my manager, quit my job. He tried to offer the remote thing. I said, I'm sorry, I've already made up my mind.
Yep.
And then that following Monday, I purchased those things. I started doing business development, picking up clients, like, working 12, 13-hour days, whatever I needed to do. And actually landed my first placement. It was a $22,000 placement, 6 weeks. Well, the offer letter was signed actually 5 weeks after I quit. So it was a little data analyst role in San Francisco, a little startup I found, and was able to fill it just using those things that I had purchased. So that initial investment, I don't even remember what the question was, but that initial investment, maybe it was a couple $1,000s on this credit card. And I had some cash, but it wasn't 6 months. I was like playing with fire here. I had not even like 60 days of runway. I was like, I'm burning my ships and I'm going for it, which that's kind of how I operate. It's not the hardest thing. Every CPA is like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
They're like, you need 6. Yeah, that's what every accounting, you need 6 months of reserve. And I'm like, okay, we'll get there, but we're going to grow. We're going to hire someone else. I'm getting better at it. But at the time, that was my mentality was I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do a deal. I'm going to prove that I can do it. And then I'm going to do another one. And that's what I did.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing. So walk me through, you're doing your biz dev. When you started doing it in 2013, what did your biz dev look like when you started? So I'm imagining the first couple of weeks, it's all biz dev. That's all you're doing. Like, you're not sourcing, you're just focused on that. So, did you have a VA helping you? Were you going through looking at postings on Indeed? I'm sure you had a non-compete with your last one. So kind of just walk me through that.
Yeah. And I think this was where having been a commission only recruiter for so long, I mean, that was the other thought process in my mind was like, you know, I'm not that far away from what I was doing there because
you're already doing it. Yeah.
Right. Like if you know how to drum up your own business as a commission only anything, then it's about it's gonna look about the same.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're exactly right. I knew how to find emails. It's not really a secret anymore.
Yep.
If it is, someone email Todd if you're listening to this podcast. He'll help you out.
I know, for real. It's so funny. Somebody responded and they're like, how did you get my personal email? And I'm like, really? Like, how did I not get that?
Internet? 2020 and the internet. So yeah, I just started building lists, sending cold emails, maybe like 100, 200 a day. And my pitch is very simple in the way that I teach people in Henner's Academy it's just value first. I saw your job opening for this in this city, Java developer in San Francisco. We've got some great candidates we're working with. Would you like to see some of their profiles? And then you drop your link to schedule a call with you. And that was how I would get on job order calls. So sometimes they'd respond, hey, yeah, send them over. And I basically, people say bait and switch. I'm like, no, I have them, but I want to get on the call with you first just to clarify some things.
Yeah.
So well, that was what I did.
I've always, so when I've done that, and I just want to reflect what you're saying, I always go the authentic route. So I always just go, you know, when I send it and then they say, hey, send me the candidates, I go, look, you know, just from integrity, I can't send a candidate without having, like, I got to make sure, like, I vet them and I vet you. And I haven't really had too much pushback on that. They're like, yeah, that's fine.
Make it about serving them and giving them the best quality possible.
Yep.
And I rarely have anyone have an issue with that.
We had it even with Kate, like a couple of weeks ago. Cold email went out and the person's like, send candidates, and we're like, hey, we like to have a conversation and just kind of vet a little bit and make sure. And they were like, we don't have, just send them if you got them. And I was like, Kate was like, what should I do? And I'm like, cut that client immediately. Like, they've already indicated that they don't want a relationship, they don't value. So sometimes people get hung up of like, well, what if that one person doesn't, you know, want to work with me? It's like, then they don't want to work with you, dude. Like, move on. Like, not everyone's gonna,
Right. So this is where I think of recruiting like dating. And I actually think this is like a super fun analogy because, like, at the end of the day, I want a long-term relationship. I want to know you're going to come back to me. I want to know that, like, we can build something here. So if you can think of it that way, that's really helpful because fundamentally, like, no, that's just like going home with somebody. And like, no, I'm not like, no. Because if you want a long-term relationship, exactly. Respect yourself. You got to think about like, what do you, and like, so something like that, I was like very curt, very short. And it was just like, big picture wise, that's not aligned. And like, it's really cool when you reject something too, when you're the person who's like, I actually don't want that. Like, that's a super cool switch for people.
Yeah, totally. So that was how I did business development, and I didn't hire a VA. I didn't know anything about any of that.
It was 100 or 200 emails that you're kind of getting out. You're targeting. You're looking at the roles. Were you? I'm assuming when you were doing it for the other firm, you were pretty cold call heavy. For your launch, were you even doing that, or were you like, look, man, you know, good cold emails is just going to get me in the door, and that's all I need to do?
Yeah, honestly. So like occasionally, like with a lot of software nowadays, you can see, you know, there's like a little read receipt you get. So what I'll typically do is when I send the campaign out, if I see someone reading or clicking in the email, then I'll try to find their number and call them. But most of the time, that's less than 10% of the time I'm really doing that. I really am big on having a calendar scheduler, making it as easy as possible for them to schedule a call with you. I keep the job order calls short, 10 to 15 minutes. I know they're busy, and I try to work with hiring managers. I'm not a big fan of working with HR or internal recruiters. Some people do. That's fine. It's just not my thing. So I'm really big on that. And I found that was a pretty good way to get my calendar with at least a couple of job order calls a week. So it gave me enough at-bats. Yeah.
Were you using like an email subscriber, like MailChimp, Constant Contact? Because like you're saying you're checking read receipts. I'm curious what that is.
Yeah, at the time it was a company called reply.io. And I was using either Hunter or Snove to find the emails. So I don't know, I spoke with their CEO, and I've gone through so many different of these softwares. I don't use them anymore. Now I use Snove mostly, which Snove, I don't know how you pronounce
Yeah,
it.
I've got, now that I'm talking, I just did an analysis of like 15 of these tools and measured them, and I'll send you my spreadsheet.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, to see how accurate and then cost. What are you using for your email campaigns? I'm assuming you're dropping them in and there's a sequence that's going out, or are you still doing them like by hand?
Yeah. So we still use Snovio, and you can build campaigns within that. So I like it because it's a nice one-stop shop. You can find emails, you can build the lists, you can schedule them. It's all in one place. And Hunter used to do that, but then LinkedIn slapped them and said you can't do that. So Snove is the only tool that I know that you can do all that with, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. There's so many tools out there. I'm always like, in Headhunters Academy, we have had 70 people go through that. I always learn something from someone who goes through that, because we have lots of different recruiting backgrounds in there. So we'll have people that I'm 10 years and I recruit medical professionals, or, you know, I'm an IT guy, or I do sales, I do executive search, and then we have people beginning, we have people with established businesses. So I learn from them all the time on what's out there. So
it's really cool. So Headhunters Academy is actually, it's not niche down and specific to like only for software. It's really like, it's designed to give you all the skills you need to launch, grow, scale your business.
Yes. So right now, it's mostly about following the path that I followed. It's mostly about getting out of a 9-to-5 and successfully starting your own 6-figure recruiting business. And that's like, 5 deals a year. So we just revamped the whole course, and I focus a lot on the client avatar, like the right clients to go after, because there are some clients that people will try to work with. They don't have urgency, or they don't really have a need to work with a recruiter, or you're spinning your wheels getting interviews, but they're not really pulling the trigger on anything. So I spend a lot of time focusing on that when people are getting started on, the Bay Area is great. LA is great. Like, we all know there's these tech hubs, and I just say to people, whether you like it or not, there are industries right now that are more urgent than others. So I don't really care if you're like, well, I've always recruited nurses, and I have nothing against that. You can do really great at that. But I'm saying, if you want to really build this and ramp up quickly and do placements faster with higher fees, you're going to have to be able to pivot out of what you've always known. So we actually rank the industries for our students.
Oh, that's awesome.
We rate them for them. We give them an idea of where we recommend you look. And we use the LinkedIn industry key. So if you Google LinkedIn industry key, they have like 312 different industry codes that they use. And so it's really helpful, because it helps you to brainstorm, okay, like what would be a good vertical to go into here. And then from there, I'm very opportunistic about our approach. Like I say, cast a wide net, look where you see some urgency, try to find those clients who really need a recruiter, who lack the infrastructure, and get on a job order call with them. And if you can tell there's urgency and you get your fee agreement signed quickly, great, that's what you want. That's probably going to be a good client. You can't always tell at the beginning, obviously. You have to start sending some people, and you don't know till you know if it's a good client or not. But I've tried to develop Headhunters Academy to really help recruiters identify how to get the fastest start possible. And I think that's a pretty key area, is knowing where to go, what to focus on. And I think you shouldn't be picky about the industry. I think you should go where there's money being made and where they want to pay you.
Yeah. But what are some common things you see people getting hung up on? I mean, you've mentored so many people. You're obviously really good at it. Yeah. What are some common things? So one thing that I heard just now was, hey, people get stuck on an industry, and I'm like, dude, go where the money is, go where it's growing. Whatever you've done in the past is okay to pivot. You can pivot back. What else do you see people getting hung up on going through Headhunters?
Well, so I think the biggest thing, like, I come from an agency background, which really you have to adopt a sales mindset. But we have people that don't have that background, and maybe they come from corporate recruiting, or they've been in HR for a long time. And I think was it the biggest hurdle? Was that what you were asking?
Yeah, just kind of some of the common things that you see them, because having mentored so many recruiters, you start to see patterns. Yeah.
So this is a big one. And I think it's like the other day I was saying, okay, when I'm doing a pre-screen call with the candidate, I will never, ever, ever spend more than 10 minutes on the phone with them. Like I want to get in and I want to get out. I want to get the core details I need so that I can submit that resume, but I've got other candidates that I want to pre-screen. One gal said, wow, this alone is going to save me so much time, money, and energy. I've been spending an hour on those calls. See, that makes no sense. You shouldn't be spending so much time. It's like, for what? You need to know like their family lineage or something? Like, why are you spending an hour before you even know if your client's interested in them? And I think that was because she didn't have that, like if you've never had to like put food on the table and been commission only and been in that's why I mentioned the agency role, then I think it's kind of hard to relate to, because it's like, well, don't we want to like really get to know them? And you do, but there's give and take here. You have to be smart about how you work. So I think that's a big hurdle, is having that sales mindset and looking at, I don't even like to use the word recruiting. It really is a sales role. So you could start brushing up on different sales concepts when you think about how to do recruiting really well.
How have you helped people? So people that come in that don't have, because I'm pretty salesy too. I mean, we're cut from the same cloth here. So how do you help the people that, what type of mindset change or what type of frames do you use to kind of help them, transition from, more of the corporate and more of the HR into like, hey, time is money. You're putting food on the table. This isn't like we're in production mode. Like you're getting it done.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot that I have to really say even, because once they've joined this program, most of them are kind of like I was, where it's like, it's just a reality for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not always. Some of them are like, we've had some people that are still 1099 with a company. And in that case, it's totally fine. They're allowed to do something like this. Yeah, I don't know in terms of urgency for them to really get up and running, that there's a whole lot that I even really have had to need to add to them, or provide for them to do that. So it just sort of comes and they just are like, I just want to do this, like show me how to do this. So I've tried to be as step-by-step, as detail oriented as possible. And we've redone the whole course 3 times based on the feedback of people in the group. And we just finished the third iteration. So, and it's been awesome. We've gotten great feedback on it. And I think we really leave no stone left unturned. So we focus on contingency, retainers, and then the third component will be staffing, which we're just starting to get into more. Adding staffing and being able to do that, which I just found an awesome company that does that. Fox Hire.
Okay.
They're awesome. You should check them out.
And they're the back office support.
So, I mean, we don't have to, I just got off a demo with them yesterday. They just do it all for you and they just take a little cut of it. So the barrier to entry is just getting lower and lower and lower. And so this is a major disruption that I think we don't realize we're in the middle of in recruiting, but it's happening where we're living right in the middle of the information age. Things are changing every single month. The time for the big agencies to just dominate, it's slowly crumbling, whether we like it or not.
Yep, 100.
Information's becoming easier for everyone. Like there's so many third-party tools that you can just sort of piece together and you can have a 6-figure business. So
I mean, for real. Absolutely.
That's the mindset shift, I think, for people.
There's another thing that I want to hit on that I think you're alluding to. So part of it is like the big boys are going to want to play with the big boys. Like, fine. Like, the Robert and Half and the Ron Stas of the world is like, okay, fine. You get Microsoft. Fine.
Right.
How many Microsofts are there? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's like the majority of businesses in America are small businesses. So one of the other things I've seen that I think is going to happen. So I think there's going to be a little bit more price competition, because as AI and technology comes in and these tools get better and better, just one person is going to be able to get so much more done. And, we can talk about fees, but just standard in recruiting is 20% in a 90-day. And it's like, that prices a lot of businesses that have like 25 employees or 30 employees out,
Right.
And so I see a lot of junior recruiters, coming in and doing a lower fee. And, granted that they're only going to do it for a year or two, and then eventually they're going to, really get their chops and graduate. But I just think the market's going to get bigger, if that makes sense. I think the productivity in the AI, I think it's going to get better and better, and people are going to be able to offer services to companies that normally they couldn't.
Totally. And one thing that we've been doing too, just I think this will give some more value to your audience is, we just signed a $10,000 a month retainer that may go for a very long time with a startup. And one of the reasons why they said they wanted to work with us was because on our website, they went to the About Us section and they said, oh, it just looks like, a good group of guys that are recruiting. Like they sort of just fell in love with like the sort of smaller feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're on job order calls, if you can't be competitive with the contingency and you notice the client has a lot of roles, pitch them the option of doing a retainer and show them it'll help them save money. So really price out, hey, you've got 10 roles to fill, at let's say $100K a pop, that's $20K a role, that's $200,000. What if we did $10,000 a month? I think looking at these roles, we can fill them easily in the next 5-6 months. That'll save you what, 120, 130. That's a great way to get your start. It's a really great way to get your start. I mean, yeah, it's more like a job, like you have to answer them more, but unlike a W-2, like you can hire a VA to help you with the sourcing there. And that's what we do. We have a full-time VA. She's awesome. She has 5 years experience from IBM. She has more experience than some of us do. And we just gave her a LinkedIn recruiter account and she just did her first placement. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's ways to like structure it now where, it can be such a win for your client. And I don't know. I just thought that was cool that they said, we looked at your site and it's like, our site's not that great. I mean, it's okay, but it's like
honest man. I love it. Was that an idea that you were playing with for a while, getting them from contingent to retainer? Like, were you thinking like, hey, I want another option to engage?
Yeah. Let me tell you this will blow someone's mind. I don't know if it'll blow yours, Todd, but it'll blow someone's mind. So a guy went through Headhunters Academy, super smart kid who, he's on 1099 with the company. And so he had some freedom and flexibility in terms of what he wanted to do. So he is from overseas, but he's a US citizen now. He lives here, but he's got all these friends back home overseas where he's from. So he said, he went through our program and he started applying to like contract recruiter jobs. Okay, so he'd get on the job order call and he'd win the contract and he'd say, hey, myself and my team, we're going to handle this. And then he'd hire one of his friends overseas. So think of this like a VA for I think $1,000 a month to do all the sourcing. And then he would run point. Well, what he started doing was building a team around that. He would pick up another retainer and he's a good salesperson. He's not amazing, but he was pretty good at pitching it and positioning himself like they were bigger than they were, because they weren't big. It was like he and some guys overseas. So he started picking up these retainers. He got up to $50,000 a month and he's paying them $1,000 each. I mean, it was an insane model. So when I heard that, I was like, all right, we got to start picking up some of these retainers. How do we do that? So that's where we came up. We came up with this concept. I call it the VA pod. It's the best I could do. And it basically is, for every retainer that you have, having a full-time VA to help you with sourcing. Because you're going to need some more manpower there. That's really hard to fulfill on your own. So really taking the time to vet a good sourcing VA, and there's a lot of them in the Philippines that they've worked with a lot of US companies. They've got great experience, but really vetting them. And we make her pay based on metrics. So she actually likes it more because she can make $1,000 in a month if she's able to get a bunch of interviews and get us a certain number of candidates. Yeah. So we have 2 $10K a month retainers, but my full desk guys aren't completely focused on that. They're able to still work on the contingent deals because of this VA. So yeah.
Yeah. And let me ask, so are you pitching the retainer directly, or is this more, okay, you've got your email sequence, you got your outreach for the contingent, and then, you start working with a client, there's some trust there's a relationship, and then you go, hey, we can do
good
this.
Question.
Yeah.
Really good question. And I think you can do both. And you should. So like if it actually, with both these situations, they hit on both scenarios. So the first one, we had a client, we did like a 22K deal with her and then like an 18K deal. And she's like, I've got 8 more positions. And she had a good relationship with one of our recruiters. So he just said, hey, instead of having to pay this big fee, because when you're starting, if you can have some cash flow, it just helps so much.
It really does.
When you're trying to hire, right? When you're trying to like hire some people, if you can project, okay, next month we're going to bring in 20 or 30 grand, it's helpful. So he pitched that to her, and he showed her that you'll save money. Like, we're doing a good job. We're filling these roles. You've already said we're doing better than these other recruiters you're working with. So we're probably going to fill at least 3 or 4 more, which is going to be another 80, 90 grand. So instead of that, let's switch to 10K a month. And then we do typically like a $1,000 or $2,000 bonus per placement.
Yep.
So he did that with her. And then he got on a job order call a month later, just regular BD. And I think what you do in those situations is you recognize, okay, do they have 1 or 2 urgent roles? That's contingency. Do they have 20 they need to fill? They won't go for contingency because it makes no sense for their budget. So you can take this consultative approach when you have these 2 options, which we weren't doing before, which I feel like an idiot. We had all these job order calls and we'd go, oh, you can't do contingency, too expensive. All right, bye. So we were missing all these opportunities because we didn't just say, oh yeah, you're right, that would be way too expensive. Let's do this instead.
Having an alternative, like an appealing alternative.
Totally, yeah. So it's been really helpful to add that to our pitch at the end of the job order call, and I really recommend everyone do that.
Are you doing that in your cold email, or your cold email?
No, not at all.
Like,
same BD approach.
Same. Yep.
This rule, blah blah blah. And then. I'm not saying, sure, you could do some research on the company and see, oh, you've got 20 positions, but right now we haven't changed really the pitch. It's just, we'll get you some candidates. Okay, great. We're interested. Let's do a call. We get on the phone, and then that's when we explain more how the pricing would work. So, that's been a game changer for this year, honestly, like for my sanity, because those 2 retainers, that covers the cost of
office, salary,
software, the office, it's so helpful.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I know you have a free gift for our audience.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the free gift is a book I wrote. It's about 35 pages. It's called Matchmaker Secrets. I was trying to come up with a title.
Okay, I've just flashed back to my dating and recruiting analogy.
I know. I think I might change the name. This is gold.
This is
too
gold.
Many people are like, you're a match. Sorry. Sorry for the cheesy name. But I think you will get a lot of value in it because I do walk you through, I think I do 6 chapters. It's been a while since I've gone through it. But I walk you through my journey of how I got started in all this. And then I actually share some screenshots of how I do business development and give you some tips. So normally we sell that for $17 on our site. So for Todd and your guys' audience, it's just free, which you guys can just click the link that they're providing and get it for free.
Oh, that's awesome. You guys definitely, Jonathan's built an incredibly successful business and he's teaching others. So